what do you think security's ultimate responsibility to the company is? And almost no one would get that right, but it's exactly what you said. It's to keep the revenue flowing. What is IT's ultimate goal? To keep the revenue. It's everybody's goal.
Welcome to Cybersecurity Growth, a show for aspiring and existing cybersecurity leaders. I'm Sean Valley.
And I am Garrett Gross.
There we go. Welcome back, Garrett. Glad to be back on the air with you and doing a show.
Likewise. Yeah, it's been a while.
So today's agenda, our hot topic today is called From Individual Contributor to Leader, from IC to Leader. And when we initially advertised the show, I think we called it From Security Worker to Leader, and then we renamed it right before we went live. So just letting you know, from individual contributor to leader. We're going to talk about our own worlds of growing up in the tech scene and the security scene as ICs and growing into manager roles and growing into leader roles and our own expectations in those different roles. And now that we have gone into leadership roles, what we expect for people in those various roles who either report up to us or even us in our new roles.
And probably talk about, give a perspective on like what your executives are expecting you to have in these certain different roles, because that always wasn't spelled out to me. Like, how do I get to the next level? In fact, I've got a story who the subject of the story shall remain nameless, but it was like, well, how do I get to the next level? And it was like, just, keep being awesome. And it's like, that doesn't work. And we'll talk about that as well. But, we'll also talk about how to understand the difference between technical prowess and your ability to be influential throughout the company. I've had that discussion with some of the folks that work for me. That's a very salient topic that we can go through, and then round out on how to build the skills that will accrete you to whatever position you want to be at. And that's probably one of the overarching themes is like, do you want to be in a leadership position? So super excited about that.
All right, today's topic is From Individual Contributor to Leader. We're going to talk about the roles as you progress in your career, the roles as we progress in your career. Maybe you are in an IC role today, an individual contributor role today. Maybe you're in a manager role. Maybe you're even in a director role. But we do say in the title here, From Individual Contributor to Leader. Getting to the role of leader doesn't necessarily have a whole lot to do with title. I know people who are in director roles, VP roles, who folks would say, yeah, I know you have a high title, but I wouldn't consider you a leader. And I do have folks who are senior engineer, and people are like, that person is a leader, right? So we'll talk a little bit about some of these different aspects.
There's also a fundamental difference between a manager and a leader. I'll just put that out there, just to be a little existential about it.
Yeah, and it's just something to note, right? Sometimes the title expects leadership of you.
That's right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you have that, right? So getting into it, because I think a lot of folks progress in their career. Maybe they just have this expectation of getting more money. And to get more money, I need to get promoted. So with promotion, that goes from individual contributor to maybe senior something or other, maybe principal something or other, and maybe manager something or other. And hey, maybe I'm in a manager role and I want to, again, maybe I want to make more money. Maybe I feel like I want to get a little bit more prestige, and folks kind of go from individual contributor to different types of management levels. So we'll talk a little bit about that during our time today. So getting into the core differences between someone, whether you work in IT, whether you work in security, and going up to those different aspects. Garrett, our conversation today, I feel like I want to get into some fundamental differences between an individual contributor role and then more of a leader role. And I guess maybe I'll start with discussing getting stuff done, right? So if you think about some of the various roles in security, and Garrett, we'll take it outside of security too. There's the security operations analyst, right? And then there is maybe the director of the SOC. There might be an application security engineer. And then maybe there's a senior director of product security, right? Maybe you have a compliance manager. Oftentimes, by the way, the compliance manager is an individual contributor role that just somehow get the word manager tied to it. Doesn't mean you're necessarily the manager of the compliance team. It could be. some people it's that, but in many cases, you are the manager of compliance, not of people. So you're still an individual contributor. So sometimes there's the compliance manager, but then there's also the director of GRC, right?
That's
So
right.
some of these different roles. You could have a manager role. You could be the vice president of InfoSec. You could be the chief information security officer. Some larger companies, maybe you're even a senior vice president / CISO.
Yep.
So anyways, just talking about a few different titles there, kind of the left and right of those. And I guess maybe we'll start with the aspect of doing work yourself versus delegating.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like this is an interesting place to start because I think about some early times in my career and feedback I would get from my own managers when they would give me reviews back when I was an individual contributor. And I would hear people say, Sean is a person who gets stuff done. In fact, I would hear them say he gets shit done. And I saw people would say those words. He gets stuff done. And that would make me feel really good. I'm like, wow, thanks, manager. I appreciate you for saying that, because I would think about early in my career, I liked to be very busy. I enjoyed working. I got into the technology field from a few different aspects. I worked in IT, I worked in software development, I fell into security accidentally and just never left. But I've always really, I've always enjoyed getting up and working. I've truly have enjoyed being in this space. And I feel blessed for those folks who get up and say, I like doing what I'm doing. I'm glad I stumbled into a career that I don't know if I would fully do it all as a hobby, but I have done some of it as a hobby. Yeah, and I would get feedback from managers saying, you get stuff done. And I found that something that I really appreciated. As I progressed in career, moving into management roles, moving into director roles, and being the head of a team, I'm not saying leader yet, being the head of a team, I realized I needed to get less stuff done myself and ask other people to get stuff done. And that was a tough one for me as a technologist who I loved the praise when people say, you get stuff done. We appreciate, like, you get in there, you'll figure out the problem, you'll solve the problem, you'll work late in the day just because you want to get it done, to then be the person who has to delegate to get other things done.
Well, that's probably an opportune time to bring up the fact that you don't have to be a people manager. That was something that I didn't really understand until I was already managing people, to be quite honest. So there's a couple things here that I want to dive into, and I don't want to detract too much from where you're going, but let's start from square one. You need to be honest with yourself of what you want to get out of your job. Your progression. Do you want more money? Do you want more responsibility? Do you want a different set of responsibilities? Like what do you want in your next progression? Because I think a lot of people, myself included, just think, oh, well, if I want to progress in my role, I want to be more important in my company, more valuable, I want more money, I have to go the people manager route. And that's just not true. Now, and Sean, I know you have experience with this as well. There are some organizations where, yes, that is the path. Like they don't have a prescribed technical path, but all things are made to be changed, and all rules are made to be broken. So, like, if you're in an organization and you see that is your only path, well, then it's kind of up to you to either try to create that path at your current organization, or go to another job, go to another organization and find that path. Because the last thing that I'll say is, and I hate to relate this to parenting because I think that's kind of unfair to people who are not parents, is that you have to really want that. The worst thing that you could do is take a people management job when you don't want to manage people.
Yeah, I am thinking of someone who reported to me who was in a manager job. Their background was software, primarily focused more towards kind of application and product security. And they got promoted into manager because the AppSec team, the product security team, needed someone to manage the team, right? It had to be the head of the team. And as I got to know this person, I realized they weren't necessarily succeeding in that role, right? The people on the team felt like they weren't getting managed. They felt like their goals weren't being set, or if they were meeting their goals, they felt like nobody was recognizing that I'm meeting my goals. Or on the flip side, they weren't meeting their goals and nobody was calling them out for it. So it was almost like there's no accountability. I'm not being held accountable, and I feel like I'm not being managed. And so you hear that, right? Talking about the word leader, this person who was promoted to manager was never given the training or any awareness of the importance of that role.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that they became a manager over were, they were their peers previously. And now they are, again, manager to individual contributors. And the individual contributors specifically were saying, we want to be managed. We want someone to build our goals. They want celebrate our successes, call us out when we're not succeeding, tell us where we need to improve so we can level up.
That's
and they
right.
weren't getting that. And the more I got to know the person who was in the manager role, the more I realized they preferred being an individual contributor. And the truth was they weren't succeeding in the manager role,
right.
But they wanted to be an individual contributor. So we made the conscious decision to migrate that person back to an individual contributor role and move someone else into the manager role. I feel like it was really fortunate for me. It was really fortunate for that person. It was really fortunate for those team members as well, because what I didn't do was I didn't let it linger until I had to fire someone or put them on a performance plan because they weren't managing properly.
Right.
We had very open conversations, realized that it wasn't the right fit for that person, moved him back into an IC role. I took on the management role temporarily until we found someone else to kind of fill that slot. So Garrett, back to your point, not all ICs should go into management, right? And some learn it the hard way, and hopefully they can course correct before next thing you know, I need to go find a new job because I promoted myself out of the company.
Yep. Well, and also the last thing I'll say before we move on is people management is a learned skill. It is not an innate thing. Like a lot of people will say, oh, well, that person was already managing the team, and so it was a natural thing. Yes, that's called a leader. A leader is different from a manager. You are leading the team because you're showing the other team how to do the job. Maybe you're the most tenured person on that team, or you're just the most capable. I don't know. But you are leading that team, but you're not managing them. Managing a team is a learned thing. So the last thing I want to say about this is if you are promoted to manager and you've never managed people before and your company is not offering you any sort of people manager training, I would be concerned. I would either ask for that training or maybe reevaluate if this is a organization that you want to rise to the ranks, because again, that's a pretty myopic point of view that, this person doesn't need any people manager training, because you absolutely do.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thinking about the first time that I moved into a manager job. Let me go into my technical role. I was a senior security engineer at a sizable government contractor. And next thing you know, my manager one day says, I need you to take over this big program. And with this big program, I need someone to be the manager. And I want you to be the manager. And I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, you're going to be the manager of this program, Sean.
Yes.
And with that, you're not the program manager, you're the team manager. So I took over this sizable program that our department worked on. And I inherited, I forget how many people, 6, 10 people, just like that, overnight reporting to me. Some younger than me, some less experienced than me, some considerably older than me, considerably more experienced than me. And just to set the scene, I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to school to be a management business executive. So Garrett, back to your point, I didn't have the training, and all of a sudden I step into this management role. Some of the folks who were younger in career than it actually worked out real well, because they kind of looked at me as a mentor, like, hey, you've got more experience, you've got more hands-on, you came from the technical world, you've done more kind of consulting. So, they would look up to me as a mentor, and that all worked actually pretty easily because I enjoyed mentoring. I enjoy educating others. But then there's the more senior folks who are reporting to this young whippersnapper, me, and they weren't very happy that they were reporting to me, and I didn't know necessarily any aspects of that type of management to deal with the folks who weren't appreciative, right? So
Right.
I do remember stumbling into that role.
And management can differ based on the people. I've had management gigs in the past where everyone was unbelievably capable. So it was kind of a walk in the park. I've had gigs where everyone on the team was the exact opposite. And it was like, hey, Garrett, we need you to come in here and whip this team into shape. That's another challenge. So I think just to kind of, put this piece to bed, people management is a calling. So before you accept that, or before you prescribe that as your intended career path, just understand what that involves. And that's not just, and I'm not flying in the face of what you said, but it's not just setting goals and holding them to task. It's like dealing with helping them through personal issues and like being their advocate and managing vacation schedules. Like, it can be a pain in the ass, but like, again, you talk to an elementary school teacher and there's no amount of chaos that is dissuading them from loving their job. I mean, some days, trust me, as the partner of a teacher, some days it's like, it's pretty hard. But the point I'm making is that's not going to rattle me if that's really what I want to do with my career. And fortunately, that is something that I do take very seriously, is the people management aspect. So anyway, I know we've beat this horse to death, but like, people management is a calling. Let's talk about the fact that there are two different tracks that you can pursue in your attainment of leadership potential here.
Yeah, it sounds good. And before I walk away from this one of the things I did in that scenario was, hey, I actually enjoyed it. I'm like, I think I like this path. I think I will enjoy the realization that I'm no longer going to be a 100% technologist moving forward.
That's right.
I will have to be a less percentage of a technologist because I have to play manager. I won't go into the leader role yet, but I have to manage people's goals. I have to manage people's delivery. For those who aren't delivering, I'm going to have to do performance management. Without a background, I said to my manager, hey, department head, I need some training in this. So, I got myself into, manager training course so I could learn some of those basics, because all my Python education, all my cybersecurity hacking education, all my Java development application, none of those applied here. So got myself into a management training course to say, well, hey, I learned these other things by either reading books, doing hands-on, or taking courses. Let me go take a course, because I will likely do a lot of failing as I try to figure out how to be a manager if I do it myself.
Yep. That's a good point.
So we got into talking about doing it yourself versus delegating, right? I do think of one of the key things for me from an individual contributor is doing a lot of the work myself. I do think a lot as I got into management was recognizing, as I was just highlighting, I don't get to be the hands-on technologist that people praise as the person who gets stuff done, because that's my team now. My team is the one that I will be leading the praise and being the primary cheerleader for when they get stuff done. And that was an interesting transition. Right. Not everybody is excited about this. Some people consistently want to stay in that path of, I love getting stuff done. One, I love rolling up my sleeves and getting stuff done. And two, I love the praise that comes along with getting stuff done. Yep. When you get into management roles and start thinking about kind of the path towards leadership, there's a lot of delegating that work to your team and celebrating your team members when they get the stuff done. Like, you become the celebrator. Like, you celebrate their getting stuff done. And then there's also a piece of maybe someone on your team tried something that didn't work out. Maybe they tried it and it wasn't a success. You as the manager, me as the manager, sometimes takes that responsibility, right? I am the accountable party for the thing that didn't get done.
That's right.
So that falls on me, right? I'll celebrate my individual team members when they get stuff done. And when something doesn't go as planned, I'm not saying if someone failed miserably, like they did were slacking at their job, it's a different story. But if somebody tried something and the project didn't work out as planned, well, that comes back to me and I take the brunt of that. Those are some of the things where I started to transition from not just manager, but starting to think about the leader, celebrating the wins at the individual level. Even if I was a major contributor of a thing, I want to celebrate my people. Yep. And what they're doing. And when something didn't work out well, I was the primary person who said, yep, I wasn't able to deliver on that, us as a team. But again, like highlighting their successes, and then either me as the owner of the accountable party when something didn't go as well. Just some things that stood out to me.
It is a very significant shift that almost seems thankless. And to some degree, it is. And I like what you're saying about that, because delegation, when you are, I think the part that you glossed over is that switching from being an individual contributor to delegating, that is a very difficult transition. That was difficult for me. I would say that that's kind of a make or break point between someone going from IC to manager, leader, or whatever, is like, are they able to delegate and then manage that? Because to continue on with what you're saying, when your team fails, it's not only on you to accept that failure, but it's on you to fix it. It's on you to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So, again, that advocacy, that kind of like coverage, you become way more in the background. So if I'm a person who loves attention, so it was actually like I had to consciously be like, okay, you're now slipping into the shadows. And what I do now is just like you said, I am my team's biggest cheerleader. I don't care about recognition for myself. I get paid twice a month. That's the recognition that I need. But like, yeah, that is a fundamental shift in that progression.
Yeah, it's a good. I'm glad you brought that up. When I was laying down notes for topics for us to discuss today, I have in the past several years have gotten very deep in the world of objectives and key results, OKRs. Not everybody lives and dies by these, but I have in the last several years. I found great things. And I was thinking about it as an individual contributor, you deliver key results. Maybe you define a thing that gets done, and you deliver on that. And there's where we celebrate. You've identified things that need to get done. You get the things done, and then as kind of more you get to the leader side of things. They're responsible for setting the strategic objectives, right? So again, from a person who's now realizing I need to delegate, but me as the experienced manager getting into a leader, I need to think about the strategic objectives of things to get done, and then work directly with my team to define the key results, and then have the team members go off and deliver those key results. This is another one of those pieces, Garrett. I think it aligns a little bit what you were just describing there. If someone says, wait, part of being, in the manager to leader role is I primarily am setting like the strategic path or the strategic objectives and the strategic roadmap, and I don't really get to deliver as much of the hands-on things, these are good times to take a step back and say, wait, is that where I want to head? Is that where I'm going? Sometimes you may take those like personality tests, those online personality tests, and sometimes they'll highlight, do you have a focus towards kind of the strategic element of things, or are you more tactical? Sometimes folks who lean more towards tactical, stay individual contributor, might be the right path for you, and have a very successful career where you're not stumbling into management roles and struggling to play the leader role, where the leader has to think about the strategic plan for the team and strategic deliverables, and then watching the team, your individual team members go do that delivery.
What is that test? Is that Briggs and Stratton? No, that's the Sears engine.
That is definitely my lawnmower engine.
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs.
I'll also mention that, like, I don't know how to frame this the best way, but like there is depending on the organization, your role is going to change depending on what type of leadership role you've taken. Manager is typically predominantly people management. You're probably going to still be doing some individual contributor to cover for folks. Maybe you have to show them how stuff is done, whatever, but it's a really hands-on people management piece. Then a director, ideally you're managing managers at this point. So you're now helping them manage their team while you're more managing the initiatives of the organization. You get to vice president, and now it's even more abstracted. Now you're managing directors who are managing the initiatives within the team, and you're just kind of like, keeping the lights on and steering the barge, if you will. And we can dive into this into detail in a sec, but the thing that I found most interesting is, okay, so you're a VP of, let's say, information security. You're now the top dog of understanding that business. You understand all the job roles. You've probably done most of those job roles. So you are, I still wouldn't say that you're a technical expert at this point. You probably shed a lot of that technical expertise, but you're still dealing in security. You're the VP of Information Security. And Sean, you have way more experience at this than I do, so I'd love your perspective. But one thing that I heard, and this wasn't even a CISO, this was a former CIO of Southwest Airlines. He was talking, and he said, a lot of people don't realize when you make that transition from vice president to C-level, you're no longer an expert on your org. You're an expert of the company as seen through the lens of that technology, information, finance, security, whatever. And that to me is an even more like, I don't even grok that yet. I mean, I'm a newly minted vice president within the last, year or so. So like understanding that is kind of an abstract thought. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you're working at a smaller company now, so maybe your role of vice president may actually align closer to that C level that CIO is talking about. Because I think of a CIO, by the way, many CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, are directors, many are vice presidents, some are above that. So just to keep that in mind. But I think where that CIO, where they were headed, and by the way, a lot of CIOs are vice presidents also. But I think, and Southwest Airlines, a very large organization, so they may actually really have that separation. But I do think that, the C-level team, they are effectively responsible for running the organization, for making sure the business operates. And it is different from being a cybersecurity leader who's advocating for the team. It's different than being a manager who's advocating for projects and team members. It's very different from being the individual contributor who's like delivering, key results and being that security expert. That's that C-level role when the CISO or the CIO is actually invited into the C-suite, the C-level team. They are there to help run the business. And the closer you get to the executive levels, you are thinking about revenue of the company primarily.
Well, how does your individual piece affect revenue generation is really what it comes down to.
Right. How are you there to ensure that we are protecting revenue and growing revenue? Right. That is a key piece. And you're like, wait a second, information security isn't about revenue generation. It's about protecting things from getting hacked, or putting in the coolest new EDR solution, or this cool new cloud security, or the cool new AI security tool.
Nope.
No, it is about revenue generation. And that's what everyone's job is at that level. How are we there to ensure that our primary stakeholders and shareholders, that we are generating revenue for them? Because remember, if you are a for-profit business, I'm not going to talk about the not-for-profit businesses at the moment, but if you are a for-profit business, if you aren't generating revenue, there's no reason for any of your employees to exist in that organization.
Nope.
So at that C level, really a key thing is to focus on and understanding the revenue approach to the company. And so that is, understanding revenue generation, understanding how sales is working, understanding how expenses is working too. So, kind of getting to know what the finance team, your CFO and that team is working on. So you are there thinking about revenue generation. You are thinking about revenue protection. You are thinking about thoughtfully spending money in the company to make sure the company operates thoughtfully. And I am saying nothing about cybersecurity when I say this. And I'm not even talking about the team, by the way, when I'm saying this. I'm thinking about that level of the business. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, and that's one thing that when I would interview even analysts for the SOC, or like help interview for GRC folks, like whatever your security role is, I would ask, what do you think security's ultimate responsibility to the company is? And almost no one would get that right, but it's exactly what you said. It's to keep the revenue flowing. What is IT's ultimate goal? To keep the revenue. It's everybody's goal is to keep revenue flowing. And I think that is, again, an interesting thing that you need to kind of keep in mind, because I did not grow up. I did not get a degree in business. I went to school for film. So I don't have any of that. I mean, I have learned so much over my 20 years in software, but I don't have that background. So I'm having to consciously lean into understanding business administration, because that's going to help me out in my current role, which I just got a new job on Monday. So, whoa, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and I think about what you're into now. We talked about it: revenue generation, revenue protection, customer success, customer growth. And again, you think about anybody who works in information security at most levels, customer success, that's not us. Customer growth, that's not us. But no, it is. At the end of the day, it's about revenue. And if you make your customers successful, if the customers grow, there's going to be more opportunity for you to do for you individual contributors to be that strong security expert, that vocal security expert, that good security engineer who is growing the company. Now, I know folks who are 20 plus years into their career and they found a way to be the principal identity security engineer.
Yes.
Great example of someone who is in a leadership role as an individual contributor. They tried the management path and they realized, maybe I don't want to do the management path. And let me become that strong identity security person, go to a company that really appreciates that principal level of individual expertise, and I'll be that leader for identity security. Very different from the C-level VP, SVP roles who are focused around, again, revenue generation, revenue protection. You get that opportunity. You still have to think about it at those principal levels, but you can still play that individual contributor who's helping folks deliver like those technical results.
That's right. I know we're just kind of riffing here, but I'll give you an anecdote that kind of threw me for a loop talking about security and your responsibility to the business. I took a job, Sean, a while back when someone asked me to build and operate a security operations center for a multinational company who shall remain nameless. And one of the first things that this person who hired me, who is an engineering-minded individual, one of the first things that they told me that they wanted to develop was sales collateral. And I was like, for what? And he said, yes, what I want is a statement on our security efficacy that we can use when we're entering in an agreement with a prospective partner. And I thought he was smoking crack. I was like, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to build up walls and defend the castle. Like, that's what I'm here to do. But the more I thought about it, and of course, on the other side of this, I'm like, well, of course he was right. Your job ultimately is to allow the company to make money. Like, it sounds so dumb growing up as a security person that I'm like, I don't make money. Like, I hack stuff and I protect things. I'm finding pagers that have, signals interception capabilities. Like, that's what I do. But truly, if you want to stay that way, forge that path of individual contributor, get to a principal level. I have friends just like you, Sean, that are at principal or distinguished engineer positions that are making bukus of bucks. They've got tons of influence in the company. They can write their check anywhere they go. They could get any job that they wanted, and they have zero personal people management skills.
Yep. Actually, it's a good point you bring that up. I'd say in like the jobs, the VP levels, the C-level jobs, there's not a ton of them right there. It's a smaller group. The principal and distinguished engineer, there's a smaller number of those as well. Where there are more individual contributor jobs, engineer, analyst jobs, there are more manager jobs, and think of those as kind of like middle manager. So it is something to keep in mind that, folks say, oh, well, it's kind of a relatively easy move to go from like security engineer, senior security engineer, and then all of a sudden I become, the AppSec manager. Right? It's kind of an easy path to stumble into. But again, it's something to think about if you're like, wait, do I want to do people management? Do I want to manage people's time cards? Do I want to manage people's goals and deliveries? Or do I want to really like be a technologist? Like, some things to keep in mind there. There aren't as many of the most senior level jobs, like Garrett mentioned, like a distinguished engineer or something along those lines. But there aren't that many CISO jobs either. So it's easier to find the manager job, but be intentional. Make sure it's the right path for you.
Right. That's exactly it.
Anyways, yeah, I think we're at a point where I think we can start wrapping up. Did you have some final thoughts before we get to our wrap up today?
You need to forge your own path. You need to be honest about what you want out of your job, and you need to chase that. My advice to you as a people manager is to be honest with your management about what you want. Because a good manager, and a good leader will absolutely support you in whatever you want to do, even if that is a position outside the company. As much as I don't want to lose people, I would much rather help someone develop their career outside of my team. And further their career than have someone who's like, well, I just don't really have a future here and this sucks. So that's all I would say before we go into the wrap up.
I think it's good. Garrett, I say it's a good time to wrap up. We got a busy end of year for both of us, and
Yes, sir.
obviously holidays coming up. And we appreciate everybody who's been joining us throughout the year. We will do our 2025 wrap-up show in the near future, but I want to thank everyone for joining us on Cybersecurity Growth's episode today titled From IC to Business Leader. If your company would like to become a sponsor of the Cybersecurity Growth Show, just reach out to us at sales@cybersecuritygrowth.com. I'm Sean Valley, the creator of the show and the music here on Cybersecurity Growth. You can visit us at cybersecuritygrowth.com. You can get all of our shows at cybersecuritygrowth.com/webcasts. You can find us on pretty much every social location at Cybersecurity Growth. We are most active on LinkedIn and TikTok. If you like the show, please tell your friends. If you hate it, please tell all of your adversaries. Please like and subscribe, leave 5 stars, and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or even YouTube, saying something like, great show. I learned something new to help me in my cybersecurity career on my path to leadership. Garrett, you don't do a whole lot of the social media, so just kind of curious, where can people find you?
Really find me in your break room, hanging out, listening in on conversations, trying to weasel my way into building my empire of success.
Well, now's a good time to be in that break room because there's probably a fruitcake or two just hanging out in there.
That's true. A bunch of brownies and cookies and things of that nature.
Yeah. For our friends who aren't aware, you can join the Cybersecurity Growth platform, become a member, a subscriber of the Cybersecurity Growth platform. You can take a look at that right on the homepage of cybersecuritygrowth.com, or you could go into members.cybersecuritygrowth.com to learn all about it. We are usually live on the Cybersecurity Growth platform every other week, Fridays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 6:30 p.m. GMT. We're in your pod feeds a few days later. Garrett, we are getting to the holiday season. This will probably be our last show before we break for the holidays. So wishing you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. All of our viewers and listeners, same to you as well. Happy holidays.
Yes.
Hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. We will be back with our 2025 wrap-up and 2026 planning show sometime soon. Garrett, it's been a fun year as we continue doing the show together. Love it.
Just a special shout out for folks that follow my religious ideology. Happy Festivus.
For the rest of us.
That's right. Air your grievances. Get out your Festivus poll.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Garrett. I'm so glad you said that.
Of course.
There will be an image like right up here
of the Festivus poll.
Yes, right there. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
We'll probably stop streaming and we'll go from there. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
It's funny. Right before we went live, we were playing around with our lighting in our rooms. And we were trying to go like holiday themed. And my room is primarily lit by Philips Hue lighting. And Garrett, you know this because we were just talking about it. I said, hey, I'm going to put on like a Christmas themed lighting, which you can kind of see it over my shoulders, a tiny bit of red over the left shoulder, a tiny bit of green over the right shoulder. But it doesn't show up as much as it did in previous podcasts because I have these massively bright like studio lights like blasting on my face. But what's funny is I do have 2 Hue lights, one kind of in front of the camera and one above my head here. And since I just chose like some Hue holiday ambiance, my white lighting is flickering like show Stranger Things. I told you if we do this right before I go live, I will screw something up.
Sorry. I hit Christmas demonic possession.
And they are flickering like what's his name is going to jump out of the walls from Stranger Things.
Vecna.
Vecna is going to jump
I'm
out
all
of
up
the walls.
All up in Stranger Things.
By the way, Christmas Day, the second half of the final season drops.
I'm very excited about that.
Yes.
Well, and what's funny is I do not have fancy studio lighting, but I do have Hue lights in my office. So when I turn on the fancy holiday theme, it gets really intimate in here.
But the funny thing is, on camera, it just looks like you just shut the lights off.
Like I know.
It doesn't go Christmassy or anything.
It doesn't look festive at all. No.
Oh,
all right.
It's too funny. Okay.
But first, we have a bit of tradition we need to handle, I think.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Garrett, because I'm curious to learn. I'm sure our viewers are as well. Garrett, just wondering, who are you wearing today?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Sean, because when I got up this morning and dressed myself, yes, I am able to dress myself these days.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have on a plain purple tee that has no logos or anything, but I've got one of my new favorite hoodies. Not my favorite hoodie right now, but one of my newer ones. And it is from one of my favorite InfoSec outfits, Black Hills Information Security.
Oh, we've heard
This is the hoodie. This is we have done it several times. I love Black Hills. I love John Strand. I love Jason Blanchard. I love everyone at that team. I think they're fantastic. They're great to work with. Please buy all their stuff and give them all your money. Not sponsored, by the way.
Backdoors to Breaches, is that those guys?
Backdoors and Breaches, that's exactly those guys.
I was at an event last week, an offsite event doing security work, and one of the icebreakers they did before I got there was play that game. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to hear you guys are doing that.
It is a fantastic game. It is so good for those of us that are steeped in doing tabletops and incident response simulation. Like it's just a great thing. Please, again, they do anti-siphon training where like you pay as much as you want for real deal highbrow training. Like it is one of the best outfits ever. Anyway, this is their conference that they put on every year. It's the Wild West Hackin' Fest. It's held in Deadwood, South Dakota. It is very difficult to get to and get from the airport to the festival, or the conference. But let me tell you, it is a phenomenal experience. And if you're not able to make it, they usually have a lot of virtual stuff that you can join in for free. So check it out.
For someone who's never been to South Dakota, and I'm one of those Americans who's like, I might be able to pick out South Dakota on a map, but I'm certain I've flown over it before.
South of North Dakota, right?
That sounds appropriate. That sounds appropriate. Very nice.
John, I would love to hear about who. I already know who you are because I can see the top of it, and I know that shirt very well. Who are you wearing today, Sean?
Garrett, I was curious to find out if you could tell what I was wearing by the obfuscated microphone positioning of the shirt.
I knew exactly what it was the second that I joined the call. Yes.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'll move the microphone and then we'll talk about it.
That was the shirt that we released when we moved into the Frost Tower here in Austin.
So for those who are just listening and not watching, because they just had dead air for 10 seconds, let me give you an update of what I just showed.
Theater of the mind.
I have a t-shirt on that says "Keep Austin Weird," and it's kind of in a orange, white, and gray colors, and at the bottom it says Rapid 7. So it is a Rapid 7 shirt called "Keep Austin Weird." And you might be wondering, why does this shirt even exist? Well, one of Rapid 7's largest offices is in Austin, Texas. And what Rapid 7 does, we talked about this on a zillion of our shows, they just make a lot of t-shirts. And they give them out at conferences. Sometimes they make t-shirts and don't give them out, and they're only for their people. This was a shirt just for their people. And it wasn't for all the people, I'm sure you could guess. It was just for the people in the Austin office. And Keep Austin Weird is a...
Wait. Yeah. Is that the one that has all of our names on the back?
Oh, yes. I was in your office, Garrett, the Austin office, the day that this shirt was unveiled. And it was actually unveiled by someone who works the front desk, like the office manager, admin assistant type role. And I walked in as the box showed up. And they opened it up and they're like, oh, look at the t-shirts we got.
You're like, I want one.
Now, for our audience's perspective and awareness, I was the chief security officer at Rapid 7 the day that this box was opened, and I saw these shirts, and I was like, oh, this is so... I just got to the Austin office for the first time. I'd never been there before. Excited to meet people. I don't know anybody there. Nobody knows me in person. A lot of people didn't know my face or my name. But I said, let me see the shirt. And on the back of this shirt that I'm wearing right now is the first and last name of every employee that worked in that office the day that shirt was released. And I will not swear on the air right now, but I sure did that day in the lobby of the Austin office when I said, did you seriously just dox all of our employees on a t-shirt that you're going to encourage them to wear?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think my response was, why the frown? But the full enumeration of that, because it's like we're a security company.
We literally just gave out the names of, it's like we name drop people on the show who we're friends with in the industry, who we work with in the industry, and several of those names are on the back of this T-shirt right here, including our host. My name's not on the shirt because I didn't work in the office, but Garrett did work in that office.
My name is on that shirt. I remember making a stink about that, and the person responsible for making the shirt was like, yeah, but I sent out a form where you could opt out, and it made me think of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like, that notice has been on Beetlejuice for 24 years, and it's like, what? Ridiculous. What a great shirt.
I love the front of the shirt, and like, again, it is very much like, the middle school end of 7th grade T-shirt or end of 8th grade T-shirt where the school, ponied up some money with the parents to get a shirt with all the names of all the kids at the end of the year.
So
but
weird.
We were a cybersecurity company, and we provided the names of all of our employees to anyone who wears that shirt around.
Yeah, and just for those of you who are not able to connect the dots, I now have all the names of every person that works in this office. I can probably guess their email structure. I can now start the process of reconnaissance and eventual identity theft because it wouldn't be that hard. I mean, you may not think, first name, last name, that's not that bad. Right. But when you have a correlated set of first and last names, you can do a lot of crazy stuff with that. So that's why that's bad.
Yeah. Thanks for
I don't want to give away tradecraft here, but it's bad.
This was me talking to the admin assistant the day I saw this, and the admin assistant was not a cybersecurity professional, so I definitely went over their head, but I definitely went a little bit deep on the social engineering aspect of having this information out there. Anyways, that's who I'm wearing. Now we know who both of us are wearing today. I want to welcome our friends who are joining us live on the various social networks. If you are in there, thanks for joining us. We see some of you out there. You are welcome to throw questions, comments in the chat. We will do our best to address those before we wrap up today. So thanks for joining us. Garrett, anything else we need to get into before we hop into our hot topic today?
No, just, everyone have a safe and happy holiday, and just remember that cybercrime is at an all-time high every Christmas season, but especially now because, as we all know, every year it gets worse. So just be vigilant this holiday season. Resist the urge to respond to urgent emails, phone calls, phishing attempts, stuff like that. Just it's the holiday. Just take it easy. No one needs you to open that PDF immediately. Or send $200 worth of Applebee's gift cards to your CEO. Yeah,
it's a good point. And this likely will be the last show we record before the holiday break.
Yes.
So most likely our next show will be our 2025 wrap up and 2026 expectations show. So we'll come back with that next.
And given our track history, we'll probably do the 2025 wrap up midway between in 2026.
June-ish. No, it says on all of our marketing information
every Friday.
Every other Friday.
Every other Friday.
Every other Friday. Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Consistent. Very consistent. Every other Friday.
Yes.
Okay.
And seen.
And seen. Actually, it's not the first time. I forgot. When I was in college-aged time, I worked at a Circuit City. RIP Circuit City. I worked at a Circuit City. I was in sales at Circuit City, and I actually got an opportunity to become the manager of I forget what the name of the department was, but like the CD and games department.
Sick.
CD's nuts. That's what my son would say right now if he heard that. But I was the manager. I was the manager of the music and games department. And next thing you know, I had people working for me, my colleagues. So that was way back in the day. When I got into tech, I was an individual contributor. It is that time of year for, stale fruitcake. Well, the fruitcakes probably aren't too stale unless they're last year's fruit. They could be last year's fruitcake that got put in there.
Does a fruitcake ever get bad?
I don't think they have expiration dates. Like
it starts out bad.
It starts bad, ends good. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it ferments into like a wine, or like it gets intoxicating or something. I don't know.